Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting really well-informed on some complex stuff. And today, we're diving into something, well, deeply personal, this whole quest for a longer life.
Right.
But honestly, the real mission here, what we're aiming for in this deep dive, it isn't just about adding more years. It's about adding life to those years.
Yes, that's the critical part.
So we're going to pull out the most important insights from sources provided by a physician who's focused on longevity.
Right.
And it's all custom tailored to help you, our listener, extend both your chronological lifespan, how long you actually live, and maybe even more importantly, your health span.
The quality of those years, exactly. And that distinction, it's just vital.
Why is it so vital?
Because look, for most of us, the sad reality is that our lives end up being cut short or severely diminished by what people often call the four horsemen of chronic disease.
Four horsemen.
We're talking heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's or type 2 diabetes, and all the metabolic problems related to it.
And these aren't, sudden things that just happen. They're cumulative. They build up over decades.
So you're saying these aren't just like random bad luck, that they're largely preventable. That sounds, well, that's a pretty powerful claim.
It is, and it shifts the whole perspective.
So what's the biggest misunderstanding people have about how these diseases develop, and how has sort of traditional medicine typically handled them?
Well, okay, think about medicine 2.0. That's what we call a conventional approach, the one that really took off from the 1930s onwards.
Right. Antibiotics, scientific method.
Exactly. And it's been phenomenal at what it does best. Think of it as being a master at catching the eggs.
Catching the eggs?
Yeah. If you have an acute illness, a really bad infection, or a major injury, modern medicine can be, truly miraculous. It's built for that kind of rapid, life-saving intervention.
I remember that feeling so clearly from surgical residency at Johns Hopkins, it felt like. Like I was just standing there constantly trying to catch all these falling eggs.
The patients. Yeah, patients dying from chronic diseases and feeling totally overwhelmed, just helpless. That feeling of futility, of just reacting all the time. That's actually what pushed me to step away from traditional medicine. I felt like we weren't fixing the real root problem.
And that frustration, it took you down a pretty unexpected path, didn't it?
It sure did.
From, the operating room to management consulting. At McKinsey, focusing on credit risk during the financial crisis in 06-07, that's quite a pivot.
It really was. And it was eye-opening. I watched bankers going through literally the 5 stages of grief as they faced, impending doom.
Right.
And it hit me then that medicine had this massive blind spot. Its whole approach to risk.
How so?
Well, in finance, risk management is absolutely central. It's proactive. You have to be. In medicine, though, it often felt more reactive or sometimes approached emotionally, not really analytically. That whole detour just completely changed how I saw health and disease. It highlighted this fundamental flaw.
Which brings us neatly to the evolution of medicine itself. We can kind of break it down into 3 big eras.
Okay.
So first, medicine 1.0. Think Hippocrates up to maybe the 1800s. It was largely about do no harm.
Right.
But without many truly effective tools, that often just meant inaction.
Yeah.
Remember Ignaz Semmelweis, the Viennese doctor who figured out hand-washing stopped childbed fever?
Oh, yeah, the hand-washing guy. Tragic story.
Totally. He was ostracized, died in an asylum just because his colleagues resisted what seemed like a radical idea.
Talking about resisting innovation. Okay, so that's 1.0. Then came medicine 2.0.
Exactly. Took off around the 1930s, driven by the scientific method, breakthroughs like antibiotics.
Right.
It absolutely revolutionized how we treated acute illnesses, infections, trauma, like that kid in the car crash you mentioned, saving the ER. Medicine 2.0 became this incredible scientific war machine against those immediate threats.
It really did. We got amazingly good at catching the eggs, as you said.
We did. But here's the crucial point, the real limitation. Medicine 2.0 has made, honestly, very little progress against those 4 horsemen. It excels at keeping us alive after we get sick. It delays death, often, but it doesn't really prevent the onset of these chronic conditions in the first place.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Take type 2 diabetes. Medicine 2.0 often waits until a patient hits a specific diagnostic number, like an HbA1c of 6.5%, before it's treated like an urgent issue.
So you're already quite far down the path by then.
Exactly. Intervention often comes at the very last stop on the line,
Which is precisely what medicine 3.0 aims to fix. So if this is the fresh approach, what's the fundamental difference? How does it really shift things? Where are the blind spots in the current system that this new way addresses?
Okay, the first and probably the biggest shift is a much, much greater emphasis on prevention.
Prevention makes sense.
It's like Noah building the ark before it starts raining, right?
Yeah.
Rather than figuring out how to get dry once the flood's already hit.
Good analogy.
It's not just about fancy new technology, though that's part of it, like, say, continuous glucose monitors. It's more a fundamental change in mindset.
That's key. Okay, so mindset shift number one is prevention. What's next?
Second, Medicine 3.0 moves towards truly individualized care.
Right, because Medicine 2.0 often takes average results from clinical trials and applies them to everybody.
Exactly. But no patient is average, are they?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
So how does this new approach make medicine, evidence-informed, but also tailored specifically to you, the individual listener?
It takes that broad evidence, the clinical trial data, and then it drills down. It asks, okay, how is your specific physiology, your genetics, your lifestyle similar to or different from the people in that study?
I see.
It's about understanding your specific risks, your specific responses, instead of just relying on those population averages.
Okay, prevention, individualization. What's third?
Third, it's about an honest assessment of risk. And this is where Medicine 2.0 can sometimes get it spectacularly wrong.
Oh, yeah. Like how?
Well, think about the whole hormone replacement therapy, the HRT controversy.
Right, I remember that. Huge scare.
Huge scare. A study showed a 24% relative increase in breast cancer risk, and that led to widespread condemnation. HRT basically became taboo.
Yeah.
But what often wasn't highlighted was the absolute risk increase, which was minuscule. We're talking maybe 5 extra cases per 1,000 women over a year.
Wow, that sounds completely different when you put it that way.
It is completely different. So the key insight here for you listening is always ask, is this risk relative or absolute? That one question can totally reframe how you understand health information.
That's a really practical takeaway. Relative versus absolute risk.
Okay.
And the fourth shift.
The fourth shift is maybe the most critical. Medicine 3.0 really demands that you, the patient, become an active participant.
Not just passively receiving treatment.
Exactly. You can't be passive. You need to be well-informed, really clear-eyed about your goals, understand your personal risk profile, and be willing to change those ingrained habits, step outside your comfort zone sometimes. It's about confronting problems head-on, instead of ignoring them until it's possibly too late.
This really brings us to that crucial distinction you mentioned earlier. Health span versus lifespan.
Yes.
I think of my friend Becky's mother, Sophie. Such a poignant example for me. Sophie lived to 83, which sounds pretty good on paper.
Right, a decent lifespan.
But her last decade, it was just this slow, painful decline. She loved gardening, couldn't do it, loved playing with her grandkids, couldn't manage it. She was just robbed of joy, of activity. That's what I call the marginal decade. We mourned her biological death, of course. But the real sadness, for me anyway, was that she lost the joy of living years before that.
Sophie's story is, unfortunately, way too common. Longevity isn't just about the number of years you clock up. It's about how well you live those years.
Exactly.
The goal has to be maximizing health span, shortening that period of decline, of morbidity, right at the end of life. That's the concept of compression of morbidity.
Compression of morbidity. I like that term. So the centenarian decathlon you mentioned, that's not just a cool metaphor, is it? It's the actual blueprint for maximizing that health span.
That's the idea. That's the core takeaway.
So instead of just expecting decline, like it's inevitable, I ask my patients, okay, what do you really want to be able to do in your 80s, your 90s?
Right. What are the specific goals?
Yeah. Hike a certain trail, carry your own groceries without help, pick up a great-grandchild off the floor, play 18 holes of golf, whatever it is for you. That becomes the framework for this centenarian decathlon. It's about training specifically for those activities you value, so you're not just, existing, but truly living.
And it's an achievable goal for way more people than you might think. Look at actual centenarians, people who live to 100+ Seward. They often achieve this compression of morbidity naturally. They live healthy, active lives right up until a very brief period of decline at the very end. Medicine 3.0 aims to help you do that too, through specific strategies, potentially leading to what we sometimes call bonus decades of healthy life.
Now, what's fascinating here, you touched on genetics. Studies, like those on Scandinavian twins, suggest genes only account for maybe 20–30% of overall lifespan variation. That's less than I thought.
It is surprisingly low for overall lifespan, and this is where it gets really interesting, that Genetic influence seems to increase quite significantly with age, especially for the superagers, the centenarians.
Ah, okay. So genes matter more for extreme longevity.
It seems so. We're talking about specific genes like APOE, which relates to how your body handles cholesterol, and FOXO3, which is involved in cellular repair mechanisms.
But we can't change our genes.
We can't change our genes, no, but that 70–80%, that's a lot. That is within our control through lifestyle and environment.
Okay.
Which leads us directly to the 4 pillars of longevity. These are the tactics, the training plan for your centenarian decathlon.
Practical stuff.
The practical stuff. And it's really important to remember, these pillars are not silos. They're profoundly interconnected. You can't just optimize one and ignore the others. They all influence each other.
Okay, so you've laid out these 4 pillars. Stressed, they're interconnected.
Yeah.
But let's be real. For the average person listening, maybe with a busy job, family, this can sound like a lot.
It can feel overwhelming, yeah.
Where do you even start? Is there a hierarchy? Is there like one pillar that tends to unlock progress in the others more easily?
That's a really practical, important question. And while, yes, they're all connected, if I absolutely had to pick one to start with, the one with perhaps the most leverage, it would be the first pillar.
Exercise.
Exercise. Okay, why exercise first?
The data supporting its importance is just, it's overwhelming. There was a big 2018 JAMA study, looked at over 120,000 people.
Wow.
And it found that higher VO2 max, that's your cardiorespiratory fitness, correlated with, surprisingly low mortality rates.
Get this. Someone in the top 2.5% fittest group had a 50% lower all-cause mortality risk compared to the least fit. 50%. That's just astounding.
That is incredible, half the risk. But like you said before, just saying exercise is too vague, isn't it? It's not just about, going for a casual jog now and then.
Absolutely not.
Our deep dive shows it's really about these 4 distinct, powerful components within exercise. The first one, and maybe the most surprising to some people, is aerobic efficiency, or Zone 2 training.
Yes.
So what exactly is Zone 2, and why is it so foundational?
Okay, Zone 2 is all about building your mitochondrial health and your metabolic flexibility.
Metabolic flexibility meaning?
Meaning your body's ability to efficiently burn both fat and glucose for fuel and switch between them easily.
Ah, okay.
Think about professional cyclists. They spend something like 80% of their training time in Zone 2. They're building this incredibly deep metabolic foundation.
Right.
Now contrast that with, say, sedentary individuals who might have metabolic syndrome. They often rely almost entirely on glucose. Their bodies have kind of forgotten how to tap into fat stores effectively.
So, practically speaking, how do you know you're actually in Zone 2? What should it feel like? How do you measure it?
The simplest way to gauge it without fancy equipment is the talk test. You should be able to talk in full sentences, but just barely. Like, you wouldn't want to hold a long, complex conversation.
Okay. Huffing and puffing a bit, but can still talk?
Exactly. If you were measuring lactate, your levels would be steady, typically between 1.7 and 2.0 millimoles.
And how much do you recommend?
As a starting point, aim for about 3 hours per week, maybe 4 45-minute sessions.
Okay.
This is really foundational for improving how your body handles glucose, your metabolic health. It effectively helps your muscles bypass insulin resistance.
Got it. So Zone 2 is the base. What's next?
Next up is peak aerobic capacity, or VO2 max. If Zone 2 is about building the engine's foundation, its efficiency, VO2 max is about the engine's top end, its peak power output.
And why is that important, especially for longevity?
It's absolutely crucial for maintaining independence as you age. There's a certain threshold for VO2 max. It's a measure of how efficiently your body uses oxygen during intense exercise.
Right.
If your VO2 max drops below that critical point, it varies slightly by age and sex, but let's say around 18 millikilojoule for men, 15 for women, it basically means your engine is beginning to fail.
Wow.
It seriously threatens your ability to do basic activities, to live on your own.
So how do you train VO2 max? It sounds intense.
It usually involves high-intensity interval training, or HIIT. After you've built that solid Zone 2 base, it builds that burst of power you need for real-world things.
Like what?
Like sprinting to catch a flight. Or think about our hunter-gatherer ancestors needing a sudden burst of speed or power for hunting or escaping danger.
Right, having that extra gear when you really need it.
Exactly. It's about functional capacity.
Okay, Zone 2 VO2 max. The third component is strength.
Yes. And this is so important because muscle mass starts declining surprisingly early, often in your 30s.
30s, really?
Yep. And by the time you reach age 80, the average person has lost something like 40% of their peak muscle mass. That's significant.
That's huge. Why is preserving muscle so critical?
I call muscle our exoskeleton. It literally protects your bones. Strong muscles and connective tissues are what prevent falls.
And falls are devastating for older adults.
Absolutely. A leading cause of death and disability. Strong muscles stabilize your joints and absorb impact.
So it's not just about looking good, it's fundamental protection.
Precisely. Think of building muscle like financial planning. You're building a reserve.
A reserve against what?
Against injury, against illness, against the inevitable decline that happens if you don't actively fight it. It allows you to maintain your ability to do the activities you enjoy, the things in your centenarian decathlon.
Makes sense. What are some practical ways to build strength, especially functional strength?
Well, beyond standard weightlifting, things like rucking, which is just walking with a weighted pack, are great. It's a very practical way to add carrying back into our lives, something we've largely engineered out.
Right. We don't carry much anymore.
Exactly. And also emphasizing eccentric loading.
Eccentric loading. What's that?
That's loading a muscle as it lengthens. So think about slowly lowering a heavy weight during a bicep curl rather than just letting it drop. That eccentric phase is incredibly important for building strength and resilience.
Interesting. Okay, so we have aerobic efficiency, zone 2, peak capacity, VO2 max, strength.
Yeah.
What's the fourth crucial element of exercise?
The fourth is stability.
Stability.
This, I think, is the mullet-proof element. It's absolutely crucial for preventing the kinds of injuries that can completely derail your health span, like what happened to Sophie with her fall.
Right, so it's injury prevention.
It's injury prevention, but it's also about efficient movement. I like the analogy of a race car. Yeah. A track car might not look as overtly muscular as, say, a dragster, but it's incredibly stable. That stability allows it to transmit immense force through corners, efficiently and safely.
Ah, I see. So stability allows you to use your strength and power effectively without getting hurt.
Exactly. Stability training, often based on principles like DNS, dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, which focuses on restoring ideal movement patterns we had as babies.
Okay.
It starts with really fundamental concepts, like 360-degree abdominal breathing. Think of a plastic water bottle.
Yeah.
If the cap is off, you can crush it easily, but put the cap on, build that internal pressure, and suddenly it's incredibly strong. That's intra-abdominal pressure created by proper breathing.
Wow. Oh, what else?
It also involves things like foot control, really feeling all four corners of your feet grounding you, proper shoulder mechanics, protecting the rotator cuff, even hand strength.
Hand strength, really?
Yeah, grip strength is actually surprisingly correlated with cognitive health and lowered dementia risk. It's all connected.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like stability is the foundation for everything else.
It really is. And for me, no story illustrates the power of focusing on stability and consistent training better than my client, Barry.
Tell us about Barry.
Barry was an octogenarian, retired, decided rebuilding his body was going to be his new job.
Love that.
He started super basic movements, then learned to dance, used agility ladders, and eventually, despite being in his 80s, he was jumping. And he mastered this move we now call the Barry Get-Up.
The Barry Get-Up, what is it?
It's standing up from a seated position on the floor without using your hands at all.
Wow. That's tough at any age.
It is, and it's now a key assessment in our centenarian decathlon framework. People like Barry are just completely rewriting the script on aging and decline. It's incredibly inspiring.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so that covers the massive pillar of exercise. Let's move on to the second pillar, nutrition.
Ah, yes, nutrition. This area is, well, it's a minefield, isn't it? So much conflicting information out there.
Totally. Eat this, don't eat that. It changes every week.
And frankly, a lot of traditional nutrition research, particularly nutritional epidemiology, is deeply flawed.
Flawed how? You mentioned John Ioannidis calling it a scandal. That's strong language.
It is strong, but arguably justified. Epidemiology looks for correlations in large populations, often using food frequency questionnaires.
Right, where you try to remember what you ate over the last month or year.
Exactly. And those are notoriously inaccurate. People forget, they misreport, they report what they think they should have eaten.
Healthy user bias.
That's another huge issue, healthy user bias. People who engage in one healthy behavior, like eating a certain food deemed healthy, are often doing lots of other healthy things too. Exercising, not smoking, seeing their doctor.
So it's hard to isolate the effect of just that one food.
Nearly impossible. Think about those studies years ago correlating moderate alcohol consumption with better health outcomes.
Yeah, I remember those. A glass of red wine a day.
Right. But when researchers controlled more carefully for all those other confounding factors, the fact that moderate drinkers often had higher incomes, better diets overall, etc., that apparent benefit often vanished.
Okay, so if epidemiology is so tricky, what's the medicine 3.0 approach to nutrition?
We shift the focus away from diet wars, vegan versus paleo versus keto, all that stuff,
Yeah.
and move towards nutritional biochemistry. It's about understanding how specific foods and combinations of nutrients actually affect your individual metabolism, your physiology, using objective data and technology, not just population averages or flawed questionnaires.
So it's personalized biochemistry.
Exactly. But the first principle, the first order term that always matters is calorie balance. How much you eat versus how much you burn. Energy balance is paramount.
Okay, and what happens when that balances up? Specifically when you consistently take in excess calories. You mentioned fat spillover.
Yes. When you eat more calories than your body needs, especially if you're not very active, your primary fat storage depots, the subcutaneous fat under your skin, can fill up.
Like a bathtub filling up.
Precisely. And when that bathtub overflows, the excess fat has to go somewhere else. It starts spilling over into places it really shouldn't be, like your liver, your muscles, even around your heart.
Sound bad.
It is. This leads to conditions like NFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which can progress to NASH, a more serious form with inflammation and scarring. And it drives insulin resistance in the muscles and liver.
And this spillover is a huge, often silent problem today, isn't it? You mentioned fructose specifically.
Right. Fructose is a fascinating example of evolutionary mismatch. Our distant ancestors, likely facing periods of food scarcity and cold climates, developed a genetic mutation.
Okay.
It effectively silenced the uricase enzyme. This made them incredibly efficient at converting fructose, found in fruits, into fat. That was a survival advantage. Then store fat easily for lean times.
But now
We're swimming in a sea of fructose, not just from fruit, but concentrated in soft drinks, juices, processed foods. And that ancient survival adaptation becomes a massive disadvantage, driving fat storage, uric acid production, and metabolic problems.
wow, that evolutionary context is really helpful.
Mhm.
This spillover and fructose issue leads us right into the silent epidemic you mentioned, insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia.
Yes, hyperinsulinemia just means chronically high levels of insulin, and it often precedes full-blown type 2 diabetes by years, even decades.
And it often goes undetected.
Very often. Someone might have normal fasting blood glucose, even a normal HbA1c for a while. They might even have normal liver enzymes like ALT on the standard blood test, but that doesn't mean their liver isn't accumulating fat and becoming insulin resistant.
Yeah, that's insidious.
It is, and it's not just a precursor to diabetes, which, remember, is often the last stop on the metabolic dysfunction train line. Chronically high insulin itself is strongly associated with a massively increased risk for all the other horsemen. We're talking huge increases in relative risk for certain cancers, up to 12 times for some. Alzheimer's disease, maybe 5 times. Cardiovascular disease, nearly 6 times.
Those numbers are staggering.
They are, which is why we argue strongly that hyperinsulinemia should be recognized and treated as a legitimate endocrine disorder in its own right, not just a stepping stone to diabetes.
So, given that standard tests might miss this and everyone reacts differently to foods, how do we personalize the approach? How do we actually see what's going on inside?
This is where technology has been a real game changer. Specifically, continuous glucose monitors, CGMs.
The little sensors you wear.
Exactly. They measure your glucose levels in real time, 247. This allows you and your doctor to see precisely how your body responds to different foods, meals, exercise, stress, sleep.
So you can see like, oh, that bowl of oatmeal I thought was healthy actually spiked my blood sugar way up.
Precisely. It reveals those surprising individual responses. That real-time feedback is incredibly powerful for understanding your own carbohydrate tolerance and driving meaningful behavior change. It moves it from abstract advice to concrete personal data.
That sounds incredibly useful.
Oh.
Okay, moving to macronutrients. You made a strong case earlier for protein. Why is protein king in a longevity-focused nutritional strategy?
Primarily because of muscle. As we discussed with exercise, we naturally lose muscle mass as we age, a process called sarcopenia.
Right.
Consuming adequate protein is the primary nutritional lever we have to counteract that loss and preserve or even build muscle mass, especially when combined with strength training.
How much protein are we talking?
The general recommendation we use is aiming for about 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight per day.
Okay.
And it's best to spread that intake throughout the day rather than having it all in one meal to maximize muscle protein synthesis.
Does the type of protein matter? plant versus animal.
It does to some extent. Animal proteins, meat, fish, eggs, dairy, are generally considered complete proteins, meaning they contain all the essential amino acids your body needs in good ratios. Plant proteins often lack one or more essential amino acids or have them in lower amounts. So if you rely solely on plants, you need to be more mindful about combining different sources like beans and rice to get the full complement. Animal sources are generally more efficient for muscle building.
Got it. Okay, protein is king. What about fats? They've been controversial too.
Fats are definitely nuanced. It's not about low fat versus high fat overall, but the types of fat and, again, individual response.
Right.
Generally, the emphasis should be on monounsaturated fats, or MUFAs, think olive oil, avocados, nuts. These are consistently linked with good health outcomes.
Okay. What about saturated fats? Butter, red meat, coconut oil. They've been demonized for decades.
They have. And for some people, high saturated fat intake does significantly raise levels of ApoB, which is arguably the most important marker for cardiovascular risk as it reflects the number of atherogenic particles.
But not for everyone.
But not for everyone. Some individuals, myself included actually, seem to be able to handle a relatively high intake of saturated fat without a major negative impact on their ApoB or other lipid markers.
So again, it comes back to personalization and testing.
Absolutely. You need to know your own numbers, particularly ApoB, and see how your body responds to different types and amounts of dietary fat. It's not one size fits all. Polyunsaturated fats, PUFAs, like omega-3s from fish and omega-6s from seed oils, also play complex roles that need careful consideration.
Okay, that makes sense. Personalized based on biochemistry. Let's move to the third pillar, sleep.
Sleep. The pillar that for the longest time was probably the most neglected, especially in demanding fields like medicine.
Tell me about it. You shared your own experience during residency, severe sleep deprivation.
Oh, yeah. Brutal.
Leading to what you called old man blood.
Yeah, it sounds funny, but it was true. My blood work looked terrible. Elevated insulin, high triglycerides, low testosterone, all classic signs of metabolic dysfunction, largely driven by chronic sleep deprivation.
And the scary part is you kind of get used to it, right? That baseline resetting.
Exactly. That's the insidious nature of it. You adapt. You think feeling tired and foggy all the time is just your new normal. Sleep-deprived individuals consistently underestimate how impaired they actually are, cognitively, emotionally, physically.
So beyond just feeling tired, what does the science say about the concrete health impacts of poor sleep?
The impacts are profound. First, metabolically. Even short periods of insufficient sleep dramatically impair glucose homeostasis.
Meaning your blood sugar control goes haywire?
Pretty much. It rapidly induces a state of insulin resistance, even in young, healthy people.
Wow.
It also messes with hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Sleep-deprived people tend to feel hungrier and consume, on average, about 300 extra calories the next day, often craving sugary processed foods.
A recipe for weight gain.
Definitely. Poor sleep is strongly linked to higher risk of obesity, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. It's a major metabolic disruptor.
Okay, so metabolism takes a big hit. What about the brain? Sleep's crucial for the brain, right?
Absolutely vital. Different stages of sleep do different things. REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, seems crucial for emotional regulation, processing experiences, consolidating certain types of memory.
Okay.
And then there's deep sleep, also called slow wave sleep. This is when the brain does its heavy-duty cleaning. The glymphatic system becomes highly active.
Lymphatic system.
Yeah, it's like the brain's waste clearance system. Think of it like the city sending out crews to sweep the streets and haul away the garbage overnight. During deep sleep, cerebrospinal fluid washes through the brain tissue, clearing out metabolic byproducts, including proteins like amyloid beta, which is implicated in Alzheimer's disease.
So not enough deep sleep, and that waste potentially builds up.
That's the concern. And here's the kicker. Our ability to generate deep sleep naturally declines significantly as we age. So protecting and optimizing sleep becomes even more critical as we get older.
Okay, this is compelling. For someone listening right now who knows, yeah, my sleep isn't great, what are the first few most impactful, practical steps they can take starting tonight?
All right, number 1, optimize the environment. Your bedroom needs to be dark, like pitch black. Can't see your hand in front of your face dark? Use blackout curtains, cover LEDs.
Dark, got it.
Second, cool. The ideal temperature for sleep is surprisingly cool, around 65 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 Celsius. A cool room helps lower your core body temperature, which signals sleep.
Cool. Okay. Dark and cool.
Third, quiet. Use earplugs or a white noise machine if needed to block out disruptive sounds.
Dark, cool, quiet. Makes sense. What about behaviors before bed?
Crucial. Number one, avoidance. Alcohol. People think it helps them sleep because it makes them drowsy initially.
Right, the nightcap effect.
Exactly. But alcohol significantly fragments sleep later in the night, especially suppressing REM sleep. It's terrible for sleep quality.
Okay, no alcohol near bed. What else?
Be very careful with caffeine timing. Caffeine has a half-life of about 6 hours on average.
6
Yep.
So that 2 p.m. coffee is still about half strength circulating in your system at 8 p.m. For many people, caffeine afternoon or even late morning can interfere with sleep onset or quality.
Wow. Need to watch that afternoon cup.
Mm.
Anything else?
Avoid eating large meals within about 3 hours of bedtime. Digestion is an active process. You want your body winding down, not revving up to digest a big meal.
Right. Okay, those are great starting points. What about all the sleep trackers and wearables out there? Are they actually helpful, or do they just create more anxiety about sleep?
That's a great question. They can be helpful tools for assessment, for getting objective data on your sleep duration, stages, heart rate variability during sleep. They can reveal patterns you weren't aware of.
Sure.
But there's a real risk of developing orthosomnia, becoming overly obsessed with achieving perfect sleep scores, which ironically creates anxiety that makes sleep worse.
Huh. Yeah, I can see that happening. So use them as a tool, gather data, look for trends, but don't live and die by the score. Also, things like the Simple Insomnia Severity Index questionnaire can be very useful, and understanding your chronotype is important too.
Chronotype, you mean being a morning lark or a night owl?
Exactly. It's your natural biological predisposition to sleep and wake at certain times. Human sleep patterns likely evolved to be staggered within a group. Someone was always awake or easily roused for protection. Trying to force a night owl into a rigid early morning schedule or vice versa often leads to chronic sleep issues. Working with your chronotype as much as possible is key.
Fascinating. Okay, environment, behaviors, maybe use trackers cautiously, understand your chronotype. That's a solid plan for pillar 3. Now, the fourth, and you've suggested arguably the most impactful pillar for health span, emotional health.
Yes, emotional health.
And you learned this, as you shared, the hardest way possible.
I did. It wasn't through research initially. It was through brutal personal experience. After my son, Ayrton, had a cardiac arrest when he was just a tiny baby, a month old.
Oh my God.
He was in the hospital fighting for his life. And I couldn't bring myself to fly home from New York, where I was working. I stayed, consumed by work, by my own issues, workaholism, perfectionism, deep insecurity, really.
Even when your wife pleaded with you.
Even then, my internal state was so disordered that I prioritized work over being with my family at the most critical time. That realization, the shame, and the pain of it eventually forced me to seek serious help, leading me to the Bridge, an inpatient treatment facility.
Wow.
And that experience just completely shattered my previous view and forced me to confront the centrality of emotional well-being. It reshaped my entire understanding of what truly constitutes health.
It really brings up that profound question you posed. Why would you even want to live longer if you're fundamentally unhappy?
Exactly. What's the point of optimizing all these other pillars if your internal world is a wreck? Emotional health isn't just some fuzzy, nice-to-have thing. It is absolutely fundamental to health span.
How so physiologically?
Chronic unhappiness, stress, unresolved trauma, these things can ravage your physical health just as surely as any disease. They drive inflammation, disrupt hormones, impair immune function, and loneliness itself is a significant predictor of increased mortality, on par with smoking or obesity.
Wow. On par with smoking. And Medicine 2.0's traditional approach to mental health,
Yeah.
you feel it often falls short here.
For these deeper, more complex, long-standing issues like significant trauma or personality patterns, I think it often does. The standard model, often relying on the DSM-5 for diagnosis and perhaps medication or shorter-term therapy, doesn't always get to the roots of the problem. It's often not equipped for the deep, hard, long-term work required.
So what does work? At the Bridge, you were introduced to different frameworks and tactics. You mentioned the trauma tree.
Yes, the trauma tree was a really powerful visual metaphor for me. It shows how our adult behaviors and struggles, the leaves and branches, things like addiction, relationship problems, perfectionism, often grow out of deeper roots of past trauma or significant adversity.
What's the difference between trauma and adversity?
It's an important distinction. Adversity is hardship, difficulty, challenges. It can actually make you stronger, more resilient if you navigate it well. Trauma, on the other hand, is an experience that overwhelms your capacity to cope, leaving lasting wounds that require specific work to heal. You don't just get over trauma.
Okay, so understanding the roots is key. What are some of the practical tactics for cultivating better emotional health? Maybe drawn from approaches like DBT, dialectical behavior therapy.
DBT offers some incredibly useful skills. One foundational skill is mindfulness.
Mindfulness, we hear that word a lot. What does it mean in this context?
It's really about creating a gap, a space between a stimulus, something happens, and your response. Instead of just reacting automatically, reflexively, often based on old patterns,
Right.
mindfulness allows you to pause, observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, and choose a more considered, skillful response. It's about getting out of autopilot, processing calmly.
Okay, creating that pause. What else?
Another huge one for me was addressing my self-talk.
Your inner dialogue?
Yeah. I realized I had this relentless inner critic who I called my inner Bobby Knight, just constantly brutal, judgmental, unforgiving over the smallest things.
Hmm.
A key step was learning to simply listen to that voice non-judgmentally, recognize it, and then begin to consciously reframe it, to challenge the harshness and the disconnect between minor mistakes and the extreme internal reaction.
That sounds like hard work.
It is. It takes practice. Another core DBT skill set is emotion regulation. Learning to identify what you're feeling accurately, understand the function of that emotion, and then modulate its intensity so it doesn't overwhelm you.
Managing the emotional wave.
Exactly. And related to that is opposite action.
Opposite action.
This means when you feel an unhelpful emotional urge, like the urge to isolate when you're depressed or lash out when angry, you consciously choose to do the opposite of what that emotion is telling you to do, provided the opposite action is more skillful or aligned with your values.
Can you give an example?
Sure. My example of feeling overwhelmed by work, wanting to just grind through it, but instead choosing opposite action. Going to the creek with my family. That act, doing the opposite of the unhealthy impulse, could actually shift my mood and perspective in a way that just pushing harder never would.
That makes a lot of sense. Choosing the values-driven action over the emotion-driven impulse.
Precisely. And it's absolutely crucial to understand this isn't a quick fix. There's no magic pill, no single psychedelic journey that's going to instantly resolve deep-seated emotional patterns or trauma.
Right. It's not like taking an antibiotic for an infection.
Not at all. It's daily, ongoing work. It's like physical training for your mind and emotions. Therapy, journaling, consistently practicing these skills, mindfulness, self-talk reframing, emotion regulation, opposite action. These are essential tools for long-term progress and building genuine emotional resilience.
That's a really important point, the commitment required. Okay, so bringing this all together now, we've covered the shift to Medicine 3.0 and these 4 pillars: exercise, nutrition, sleep, and emotional health.
Right. And think of it this way. Medicine 3.0, that proactive, personalized, preventative mindset, that's your overall strategy.
The big picture approach.
Yes. And the 4 pillars. Those are your tactics, the specific actions you take day in and day out. You need both. Strategy without tactics is just wishful thinking, and tactics without strategy can be unfocused and inefficient.
Strategy and tactics. And it's not a static one-time prescription, is it?
Absolutely not. This is a dynamic process. It requires continuous feedback and iteration. Meaning you use data whether from CGMs, sleep trackers, blood work, or just paying close attention to how you feel along with your own insights and experience to constantly adjust and adapt what works best for you.
So your longevity journey is truly unique to you.
Completely unique. It demands a deep personal understanding of your own body, your own mind, your own values, your own goals.
So ultimately, this whole pursuit of longevity, this deep dive we've taken, it's not really about just hacking biology to hit some arbitrary age like 120, is it? Or just running away from death.
No, I don't think that's the healthy motivation. For me, and what I try to instill in patients, it's about finding clarity, purpose, and meaning in your life right now.
Connecting with the why.
Yes. Why do you want more time? What will you do with it? It's about being truly present, truly connected to yourself, to others, to your life.
And when you align those daily choices, those tactics within the pillars with that deeper why.
Exactly. Then living longer doesn't feel like this grim, desperate chore. It feels, well, welcomed. Necessary, even. You can genuinely look forward to the future, not with fear, but with anticipation, ready to make every year count for more, not just in number, but in quality.